In a significant move that underscores the impact of ongoing trade tensions, Amazon has announced plans to display the additional costs consumers incur due to President Donald Trump's tariffs. This decision comes as the president approaches the 100-day mark of his second term, a period characterized by heightened scrutiny of his economic policies, particularly regarding trade. According to sources familiar with the initiative, the e-commerce giant aims to show a product's total price alongside the tariff cost, thereby providing consumers with greater transparency on how trade policies affect their purchases. The impetus behind Amazon's decision appears to be a desire to mitigate backlash against the company, which faces increasing pressure from consumers and policymakers alike. Amazon doesn't want to shoulder the blame for the cost of President Trump's trade war, said a source familiar with the plan. This strategic choice positions Amazon as a more consumer-friendly option in a tumultuous economic environment where many Americans are feeling the pinch from rising prices linked to tariffs imposed on a range of imported goods. In a statement, Amazon spokesperson Tim Doyle clarified that while the company had considered integrating tariff costs into its pricing structure, it had not finalized any such plans. This statement came in response to criticisms from the White House. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt described the potential move as a hostile and political act, reflecting the contentious atmosphere surrounding trade discussions. The broader context of this development is critical. Consumer confidence has plummeted to its lowest level in 5 years, with the Conference Board reporting a significant drop in its Consumer Confidence Index. Many Americans attribute their economic concerns to the tariffs implemented by the Trump administration, with 60% believing that current economic conditions stem from the president's policies. A recent Marist poll revealed that a majority of Americans view the imposition of tariffs as harmful to the U.S. economy, a sentiment echoed across party lines, though more pronounced among Democrats and independents. As Trump rallies his supporters in Michigan to commemorate his first 100 days, he faces mounting criticism regarding his administration's handling of the economy and trade. The rally is not just a celebration but also a strategic move to galvanize support ahead of upcoming midterm elections. The political implications are significant, particularly in swing states like Michigan, where tariffs have had a profound impact on local industries and economies. Moreover, the president's approval rating has dipped, with a plurality of Americans giving him a failing grade at this milestone. Concerns about the rapid pace of his policy changes, particularly in areas like tariffs and trade, have fueled skepticism about his administration's direction. In light of these challenges, Trump's interactions with business leaders like Jeff Bezos of Amazon become increasingly pivotal. After a recent phone call, Trump described Bezos as very nice and commended him for resolving the tariff discussion quickly. As Amazon prepares to implement its transparency initiative, the ripple effects of these tariff policies continue to unfold across the economy. With consumer behavior shifting, 21% of Americans report hastening purchases ahead of potential price increases. Companies are likely to face new challenges in adapting to changing market dynamics. As the political and economic landscape evolves, future developments in trade policy will undoubtedly shape both consumer experiences and corporate strategies in the months to come. In a whirlwind of political theater, President Donald Trump made headlines on April 29, 2025. As he humorously claimed a desire to become the next pope while simultaneously addressing a contentious call with Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos amidst a backdrop of tariff disputes. The president's remarks came on the eve of his first rally marking 100 days in office, set against the backdrop of his administration's evolving relationship with both domestic and international figures. In a lighthearted moment, Trump responded to a question about the upcoming papal election, jokingly stating, "Is Pope? I'd like to be Pope. That would be my number one choice." He did, however, suggest that Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, might be a suitable candidate for the role. This levity contrasted sharply with the more serious implications of his administration's economic policies and their repercussions on trade relations. On the same day, Trump characterized his recent conversation with Bezos as a good call. which followed a tumultuous exchange regarding Amazon's potential plan to display prices reflecting the impact of tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. He solved the problem very quickly, and he did the right thing, Trump said, brushing aside the tension that had characterized their previous interactions. As Trump readies for a rally at Macomb Community College in Michigan, he is also navigating significant policy changes that have sparked both concern and support. For instance, he recently signed executive orders easing the impact of tariffs on U.S. automakers, a move aimed at supporting the industry amid a wave of uncertainty following the announcement of 25% tariffs on vehicles and parts. "We just wanted to help automakers enjoy this little transition short-term," Trump stated, highlighting his administration's focus on bolstering American manufacturing. Moreover, Trump's praise for Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer during his speech at the Selfridge Air National Guard base reflected an unexpected display of bipartisanship. "She's done a very good job," he remarked, acknowledging her efforts in seeking investment for the base. This praise came as a surprise considering the historically contentious relationship between Republican and Democratic leaders. The president's military-themed address included promises of expanded military capabilities such as the acquisition of 21 new Boeing fighter jets and the initiation of a missile defense system dubbed the Golden Dome. "The American military will soon be stronger and more powerful than ever before," Trump assured the gathered crowd, reinforcing his administration's commitment to a robust defense posture. While Trump's foreign policy maneuvers have faced scrutiny, his administration reportedly reached a trade deal with an unnamed country, with potential agreements on the horizon with India and Japan. Trade Secretary Howard Lutnick expressed optimism about the developments, indicating that negotiations were progressing well. This comes at a time when international trade dynamics are shifting and the U.S. is grappling with the consequences of its tariff policies. As the political landscape continues to shift, the consequences of Trump's decisions are becoming increasingly apparent. His brash remarks and controversial policies have drawn both fervent support and staunch opposition. In Canada, for example, his comments about Canada becoming the 51st state have been met with significant backlash, leading to a surprising electoral victory for Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberal Party. The Canadians, it seems, have found unity against perceived American overreach, underscoring the complexities of Trump's foreign policy. In conclusion, as Trump marks a tumultuous first 100 days in office, the implications of his policies will likely reverberate through both domestic and international spheres. With growing tensions over trade, military commitments, and diplomatic relations, the coming months will be crucial for the administration as it seeks to navigate a divided electorate and an increasingly complex global landscape. As the rally in Michigan approaches, all eyes will be on how Trump continues to frame his presidency amid these challenges and whether he can maintain the support of his base while addressing the concerns of a broader audience. As President Donald Trump reaches the 100-day milestone of his second term, a Marist poll reveals a mixed bag of public sentiment surrounding his administration's performance. The poll, conducted from April 21 to April 23, 2025, indicates that a significant plurality of Americans, 45%, have assigned the president a failing grade of F for his first 100 days in office. This disapproval is particularly pronounced among Democrats and independents, with 80% of Democrats and nearly half of independents expressing dissatisfaction with Trump's job performance. The results demonstrate a marked decline in approval ratings compared to previous months. Currently, only 42% of Americans approve of Trump's handling of his duties, down from 45% in March. Disapproval has risen to 53%. The issues at the forefront of this discontent include the economy, tariffs, foreign policy, and immigration, all areas where Trump's approval ratings are notably low. For instance, just 39% of respondents approve of his handling of the economy, with a staggering 60% attributing the current economic conditions to Trump's own policies. On the topic of tariffs, which have been a cornerstone of Trump's economic strategy, 57% of Americans believe that these trade barriers are detrimental to the U.S. economy. While 73% of Republicans still support the president's tariff approach, a significant 64% of independents and 88% of Democrats disapprove. Furthermore, many Americans feel that Trump's administration is rushing changes without adequately considering their impacts, with 61% expressing this concern, a notable increase from March. In terms of immigration, 44% of Americans approve of Trump's policies, yet 52% disapprove. A specific case that has drawn attention is the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador, which 49% of Americans disapprove of, further highlighting a trend of dissatisfaction with the administration's handling of immigration issues. Despite these challenges, Trump remains active in promoting his agenda, recently holding a rally in Michigan where he celebrated his administration's first 100 days. During this event, he announced plans to modernize the Air National Guard fleet, replacing aging attack aircraft with new F-15EX fighter jets, and he addressed the ongoing tariff discussions with Amazon amid concerns over rising consumer prices. Economically, the administration faces mounting pressure as nearly half of Americans report that Trump's policies have negatively impacted their personal lives. In particular, grocery prices are a significant concern, with 64% of respondents anticipating increases in the next 6 months. This sentiment is echoed across party lines. 89% of Democrats and 64% of independents expect rising grocery costs. Amidst these economic concerns, the Trump administration is also grappling with ethical questions regarding its connections to the cryptocurrency industry through World Liberty Financial, a firm associated with Trump and his family. This company has blurred the lines between private enterprise and government policy, raising alarms about potential conflicts of interest as Trump positions himself as both a major player in the crypto market and a key policymaker. As Trump navigates the complexities of his presidency, it remains to be seen how his policies will evolve and how public opinion will shift in response. The next phase of his administration may be pivotal, not only in shaping his legacy but also in determining the political landscape leading into the upcoming election cycle. With increasing scrutiny over his tariff policies and their impact on the economy, coupled with the potential ramifications of his business dealings, Trump's administration appears poised for continued challenges as it approaches the next 100 days. As President Donald Trump reaches the 100-day milestone of his second term, a significant portion of the American populace is expressing discontent with his administration's performance. The latest Marist poll indicates that a plurality of voters have assigned him a failing grade, with many attributing their dissatisfaction to his handling of critical issues such as the economy, tariffs, foreign policy, and immigration. Polling data reveals that 45% of Americans rate Trump's performance as an F, a sentiment largely echoed by 80% of Democrats and nearly half of independents. In contrast, a majority of Republicans, 54%, awarded him an A. Overall, Trump's job approval rating has slipped to 42%, down from 45% in March, while disapproval has climbed to 53%. This downward trend is particularly concerning as it marks a stark shift in public opinion since he first took office. The president's economic policies appear to be a focal point of criticism. Only 39% of respondents approve of his economic management, with 55% disapproving. Notably, a significant 60% of Americans believe that the current economic conditions are largely a result of Trump's policies, a sentiment shared by 86% of Democrats and 61% of independents. Concerns about tariffs have also surfaced, with 57% of respondents asserting that such measures hurt the U.S. economy. The economic landscape under Trump's administration has been marked by a tumultuous trade war that has rattled markets, leading to an 8% decline in the S&P 500 index, the worst performance for a president's first 100 days since Gerald Ford. Economists are increasingly wary of the potential for a recession, with the gross domestic product (GDP) growth forecasted to slow to 1.9% for the year. The chaotic and inconsistent approach to trade has left many businesses struggling to navigate the new landscape, with CEOs of major retailers warning of potential supply chain disruptions due to tariffs. Nancy van den Houten, a lead economist at Oxford Economics, emphasized that the current trade policy is unprecedented and chaotic, creating an existential crisis for many businesses. While Trump continues to promote his administration's economic record, claiming that his policies are laying the groundwork for future success, critics argue that the tariffs have become a significant burden, leading to higher prices for consumers and hampering economic growth. Former Senator Phil Gramm remarked, "Tariffs have been an unmitigated disaster economically, highlighting the detrimental effects on efficiency and growth." Public sentiment regarding inflation remains a concern, with 63% of Americans believing that Trump's policies will lead to higher grocery prices. The latest inflation data showed a slight easing, but many economists predict that the impact of tariffs will eventually drive prices up again. The administration, however, maintains that these policies will ultimately benefit the U.S. economy in the long run by encouraging domestic manufacturing and job creation. As Trump approaches his first 100 days, the administration has also faced scrutiny over its handling of immigration policies, with nearly half of Americans disapproving of the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador. The public's perception of Trump's leadership direction is similarly bleak, with 51% of respondents indicating they believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. In the tech sphere, public opinion on high-profile figures such as Elon Musk has also shifted, with 54% of Americans expressing an unfavorable view of him. Despite Musk's initiatives within the government, his influence appears to be waning as he plans to reduce his time in Washington following the initial 100-day period. As the political landscape continues to evolve, the implications of Trump's first 100 days are significant. The administration's challenges, particularly in economic policy and public perception, may shape the upcoming legislative agenda and influence voter sentiment leading into the next election cycle. With critical economic reports and policy decisions looming, the coming weeks could prove pivotal in determining the trajectory of Trump's presidency and its lasting impact on the American landscape. In a significant shift in U.S. military policy, President Donald Trump has announced plans to transform a 170-square-mile section of federal land along the southern border into what he is calling a national defense area. This initiative, outlined in a National Security Presidential Memorandum NSPM-4 titled "Military Mission for Sealing the Southern Border of the United States and Repelling Invasions," will effectively create a new military installation that is more than twice the size of Washington, D.C. The implications of this decision are profound, expanding the military's role in border enforcement and raising questions about the balance of power between Congress and the executive branch. Typically, such a substantial military expansion would require congressional approval, as Congress has historically overseen federal land management under the Constitution. However, by declaring a national emergency at the southern border, Trump has circumvented this requirement, enabling the transfer of control over the land from multiple federal agencies, including Interior, Agriculture, and Homeland Security, to the Department of Defense (DoD). This maneuver raises concerns about the military's expanding authority in domestic law enforcement, which has traditionally been restricted by the Posse Comitatus Act. The NSPM-4 calls for a phased implementation of the transfer, beginning with a strip of land in New Mexico. This land, known as the Roosevelt Reservation, was originally established in 1907 to prevent smuggling across the U.S.-Mexico border. The memorandum grants the Secretary of Defense extensive authority to extend military activities to additional federal lands along the border, effectively increasing the military's operational footprint in an area where it has historically played a limited role. Furthermore, this new designation will allow the military to bypass restrictions imposed by the Posse Comitatus Act, which prohibits federal military forces from engaging in law enforcement activities. Under the NSPM-4, military personnel will now be empowered to arrest, detain, search, and seize individuals attempting to cross into the national defense area. This marks a significant shift in the military's role, transitioning from indirect support of law enforcement to active participation in enforcing immigration laws. The language used in NSPM-4 reflects a broader conflation of immigration and national security, aiming to justify the military's expanded role. The memorandum asserts that the southern border is under attack from a variety of threats, framing the situation as a predatory incursion that necessitates a military response. This rhetoric not only muddies the waters of the military purpose doctrine, a legal framework that distinguishes between military actions and law enforcement functions, but also raises ethical concerns about the militarization of border enforcement. In addition to enhancing military authority, NSPM-4 may also serve as a strategic shortcut for funding border wall construction. By designating the area as a military installation, Trump may argue that the construction of barriers is a legitimate military project eligible for funding under military construction authorities. This is particularly noteworthy given the legal challenges faced by previous border wall initiatives, which were ruled insufficiently tied to military needs. As this unprecedented military operation unfolds, the potential for congressional backlash looms large. The constitutional powers of Congress to govern federal property and regulate military activities are clear, yet recent trends suggest a reluctance to challenge executive overreach. The National Emergencies Act, which has facilitated this transfer of authority, may also be ripe for reform to prevent future abuses of power. Environmental protections too face erosion as the administration moves forward with its plans. The southern border is home to numerous federally endangered species, and the creation of a national defense area typically requires an environmental impact assessment. However, the Trump administration has actively sought to dismantle regulatory protections, raising concerns about the ecological consequences of military operations in this sensitive region. As the dust settles on this announcement, the immediate and long-term implications of establishing a national defense area at the southern border remain uncertain. Will Congress take action to reclaim its authority? Or will the executive branch continue to assert its dominance over military and border policy? The coming weeks and months will likely reveal the extent to which this initiative reshapes the landscape of U.S. border enforcement and military engagement. The trajectory set by NSPM-4 may well define the future of U.S. military involvement in domestic affairs. In recent weeks, the diplomatic landscape has been significantly shaped by the bold and often controversial policies of President Donald Trump, reflecting a broader shift in U.S. foreign policy. As his second term unfolds, the administration is characterized by a blend of disruption and strategic recalibration, as highlighted by the insights of former U.S. Ambassador to Germany Rick Grenell. Grenell, in a recent interview, praised Trump's effectiveness in diplomacy, asserting that his administration has made noteworthy strides in reshaping international relations, particularly in the Middle East and with major global powers like China and Russia. Trump's first 100 days back in office have been marked by a decisive departure from traditional diplomatic norms. The administration's approach is described as transactional and interest-based, which has yielded significant changes, notably the Abraham Accords fostering normalization of relations between Israel and several Arab nations. This bold foreign policy reflects Trump's preference for direct engagement over decades of stagnation, a shift that Grenell believes has positioned the U.S. as a more proactive player on the global stage. However, the effectiveness of this strategy is not without its challenges. The Iranian threat remains a critical focal point in U.S. policy, with Trump adopting a tough stance aimed at encouraging reform rather than outright regime change. This delicate balance requires careful navigation, as missteps could jeopardize the fragile peace established in the region. A particularly striking diplomatic moment occurred when Trump met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at St. Peter's Basilica, a setting that underscored a commitment to faith-driven governance in geopolitics. This meeting exemplified how Trump's administration seeks to intertwine symbolism with strategic intent, aiming to foster trust and cooperation in an increasingly polarized world. Yet this reliance on symbolism alone raises questions about the sustainability of such diplomatic efforts, particularly in light of ongoing tensions with Russia. Trump's relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin has also evolved, marked by a willingness to engage directly and break from the traditional narrative of U.S.-Russia animosity. This approach, while controversial, could potentially lead to a new chapter in bilateral relations contingent upon Putin's readiness to embrace a more cooperative stance. On the economic front, Trump's administration has made waves with its tariff policies, which some analysts argue are replacing traditional sanctions as the primary method of U.S. coercive diplomacy. This transition raises concerns about the long-term implications for international economic order and the ability of the U.S. to enforce its strategic interests. Critics suggest that such unilateral measures weaken the multilateral systems that historically underpin sanctions, creating a fragmented economic landscape that could diminish the effectiveness of U.S. foreign policy. As Europe grapples with the implications of America's tariff-centric approach, there is a call for the continent to strengthen its own sanctions enforcement capabilities. The erosion of U.S. commitment to multilateralism could leave European nations vulnerable, necessitating a shift towards greater autonomy in economic diplomacy. Establishing a European sanctions authority, for instance, could unify enforcement efforts and restore credibility to sanctions as a diplomatic tool. Looking ahead, Trump's second term promises to be defined by its contradictions: bold yet unpredictable, strategic yet disruptive. As the administration engages with a complex global landscape, it remains to be seen how effectively these policies will align with America's long-term interests and those of its allies. The coming months will be crucial as the world watches to see if Trump's approach can yield sustainable outcomes in an era marked by increasing geopolitical competition and economic interdependence.